Hello, welcome to Butch's Building Blocks. Let's build something beautiful today. Not only let's build it beautiful, but let's make it big. Let's take our beautiful sunburst pattern, which is 12 inches in diameter, multiply by 4. Let's make a table, a sunburst table that is 4 feet in diameter. Come along with me into my workshop and we'll get started. As with any new project, planning is the key to success. For our sunburst table, it's going to be 4 feet in diameter. We're going to have a 10-inch bookend curly maple center. Our wedges will be 5 degrees, total of 72. Our lumber will be 3/8 of an inch, finished stock at 1/4 of an inch. We need 72 wedges. The widest end will be 2.117 inches and the narrowest part of the tip will be 0.039. Each of these sides will be cut at a 2.5 degree angle, giving us a total of 5 degrees for the whole wedge. For our sunburst table, the wedges that we are going to need will be 6 bloodwood, 6 Paduak, 17 hickory, 17 maple, 6 cherry, 10 walnut, and 8 Chakte Viga. And our center, of course, is going to be a bookend made out of curly maple. I have my bandsaw. I'm ready to cut this in half on a resaw. I'm using a 3/4 inch skip tooth blade to do the split. All right, let's give this a try. Now that we've resawed these to the correct width, we are now going to cut them to 2.25 inches, knowing that our final dimension is 2.11 inches. Here's all the rest of the timber that I've sized. I'm going to cut these all, and then when I'm finished, we'll move on to the next set. After setting my jig at 2.5, you can just see the red line there. My digital angle gauge reads 4.9 degrees. I'm ready to start ripping my boards to the correct angle. Here's what my digital angle gauge is telling me on my very first 20-inch strip of cherry. I guess at 5.1 degrees, and I'm looking for 5 degrees. That's pretty darn good. Let's hope I can hold this throughout the whole 72 wedges that I need to cut. These are long cuts. They're almost 20 inches long. The very first cut is straightforward. Just make the best you can to get this flush with your backdrop and square to that. The second cut, however, takes a double measurement in which you have to be sure your base is square and that you have the correct wood left over for your tip. I'm going to make this first cut and then I'll show you how to figure out that top end. I made this first cut, straightforward rip. The second time, you need to flip-flop this, put it back in, and then make sure that this bottom section is flush to your zero cut. Now, if we do that, you can see at the top that there is a fairly large amount of wood here. Using a piece of wood that we measured to have that 5.1 degree angle, if we take a look at that, it comes out to be 0.34 inches worth of wood. If we look here, we can tell that we are way over 0.34. So you need to make the second adjustment, bring that top piece back in so that you end up with the same amount of wood. Then check your bottom to make sure that this is still flush. Once you have the correct dimension at the top, we know that this is flush here at the bottom. We're ready to make our cuts. If you don't do the double measurement, you'll either end up with way too much wood at the top, or, as I did on this one cut, way too little. When you're cutting those angle pieces, wedges for your circle, you're going to end up with a ton of cutoffs. Don't throw those guys away. Save them. Put them together in some really cool pattern. Cut them all nice and square. And then you'll probably have to put this on top of a 1/2 inch piece of some other type of wood to give it stability. But they'll end up being pretty cool looking cutting boards when you get done. Here is approximately half of my SunBurst table. I still have to put maple strips in between these back here. I just haven't cut those yet. That's what it's going to look like, at least half of it. It'll look just like Grandma Dunkel's table, just a little more colorful. We're at the point now where we need to cut our 10-inch diameter circle. I'm at my circle cutting jig. I have a pin that's 5 inches away from that center point. We'll push this in and then spin this around and cut our circle. And there is our 10-inch circle. In front of you lie 72 5-degree wedges. This took an incredible amount of time, making 2 measurements to make sure my angle was correct, fitting them. I did have to redo probably 5 or 6 of them, that when I put them into my first circle, they did not fit properly. Next step is to put them on top of the oak circle to see how they lay on top of the wood. I finished cutting all 72 slats. I randomly put them down just to check to see if when I strapped them tight that all of my slats were cut to a good angle. As you can see, there's no large gaps in here, so it's ready to go. In the center, we're going to have our 10-inch circle. It will look something like that when it's finished. If you look close enough, you can see that this is a bookend. So that will add some really cool dimension to the center of our SunBurst table. Now comes the hard part, where I need to arrange these color slats into some type of pattern that I like. This is the 72 wedge ring all glued up. Now, I have one problem that I have to solve. After it was glued up and released, it had a bow into it. And as you can see right here, I have a separation and a curvature. I need to figure out how to take the tension out of that so that this piece will lay down flat. Otherwise, it'll cause trouble in my table forever. If you remember, we had quite a big tension bow here. What I ended up doing was cutting 3 segments free to release as much of that tension as I possibly could. There is still some here, but that's minimal. And since I'm gluing this down to MDF, I don't think it's going to be a problem. My guess is I could continue cutting, and sooner or later I'd find out exactly where the stress point is. But I think that's going to be exceptional to live with. But here's my piece of 1/2-inch MDF, which I'm going to put my colored wedges on. I'm using Tight Bond 3. All right, let's pour this on, get it spread out. Even though I ran out of that one, I bought some extra. That looks like good coverage. Now let's start laying in our big pieces. There it is. All I need to do is lay these heavy boards on top of it. Keep it clamped down, until the glue dries.